My name is Barry Cohen, and I am on the advisory board for the Seattle Interactive Conference. I'm just curious, how many people in the room, this is your first year coming to SICK? That's what I'm seeing in a lot of the rooms. Thank you for being here. I am here to introduce fellow advisory board member Brian Marr. He is the Director of Strategy with Smashing Ideas, and he is here to talk about the power of play.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Hi, wow, all right. Cool. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about the power of play. It's something in my role at Smashing Ideas, as Barry mentioned, I'm the Director of Strategy at Smashing Ideas, that we think about kind of every day. It's something that when I joined the company, I didn't expect to be learning about, I guess, as we were starting to plan and build our products. But as we looked back on what was successful and what wasn't, they all had this element of fun or play to them. And really what it comes down to is engagement and the ability to engage with people using some of these techniques that we're actually as an industry just starting to learn and not even perfect yet. I have another role, which is as an educator in the communication leadership program at the University of Washington. If you're looking for an advanced degree, it's definitely something worth checking out. Everybody, there's my little comm lead cheerleading committee over there. In that role, one of the things that I do is look at trends in the industry, trends in marketing communications, trends in digital strategy, and try and dissect them and understand what's happening at the root. And why are these things successful, and what have we used in the past that's still applicable in the future? And why don't you just jump into doing a Twitter campaign versus understanding who your target audience is, segmenting them, finding the right strategy to reach them, which may or may not include Twitter, et cetera. So that's a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today, and a little sort of hint into what some of the content is about. So with that, I actually wanted to lead off, and I actually totally blew my first slide, which is I wanted to lead off by throwing an extrinsic award out there, or reward out there for you. Throughout this talk, some of you may be tweeting, some of you may not. I have a handful of these medals, 2 or 3 of them, which I didn't bring with me, and I will make sure I get to you. That's where I blew it. They also don't totally look like this. This is, when you outsource creativity, sometimes they don't sort of meet the vision of the art director who spent quite a bit of time working on it, who's in the audience here. But I wanted to throw out a couple of awards to see kind of what it does, with the group. So tweeting, if you're into tweeting, most retweeted tweet from today's session, you'll get one of these awesome medals to hang around your neck. If you're into visual slide notes, anybody a visual slide note taker? Well, then that one's just not going to work. So you can almost draw anything on a piece of paper, and if Devin, who's in my strategy team, thinks it's the best one through Twitter, then you'll get an award for that. I'll find a way to give these. And if you're wearing them around the conference, you'll get unlimited high fives from all Smashing Idea employees, and there's like 10 of us here. So it's highly, highly valuable. Definitely something to grab. And the little hashtag for today's sick play. So interesting stuff going on in our industry at the moment. We have what I would call a severe engagement problem. And I think a lot of people, you're probably hearing the word engagement a lot lately, to the point where a lot of us are getting tired of saying it. We're getting tired of writing it. But we do have an engagement problem, and it's showing up in the way that businesses are now approaching building their digital products and experiences. I wanted to start with a little video which kind of shows you. Has everybody seen this? The some head nods, some not. I'm going to show it anyway just because it's really interesting. This points to some of the cultural issues at hand, if not issues, but things that are happening. Show of hands, who's seen this already? Okay, good.
He's driving with a box stuck under his car. And who knows how long he was driving. I saw him pull out of the parking lot and turn right, and the box was still stuck under his car. So who knows how long he was driving with that box under his car. I like bet he got home, he pulled into his driveway.
Out in the sky. I'm not. Wow. You're like, if you, it's not. It's not.
I don't think it's real. I don't think it's real.
I see the lineup for car. It's getting wasted. The Empire State Building is like really close to it, so it's a good.
Not even the front-facing camera either. I don't.
Hey, can I borrow your shoes?
You just want a high fiver, you know.
And I do best with what was in my hands.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kevin. Happy birthday to you. Yeah! Make a wish.
So, I think that's a really interesting and poignant and also kind of depressing video about our culture right now. And I think the laughter was you see the absurdity of it, but then you can also kind of see yourself in it a little bit, right? And if you can't, then good for you. But we do, these phones have kind of created this cultural phenomenon where we are engaged with a screen, but we're not necessarily engaged with the world around us. And even more importantly, we're not engaged with all this great marketing, communications, and advertising content that we're creating. So I'm kidding. But there is a cultural engagement problem that's actually leading to business challenges as well. This is a study that IBM did around engagement where people are investing, particularly in enterprise companies. The top two things, I'm going to read these to you since they're a little bit hard to see. Number one is acquiring new customers. Obviously, you need more customers to keep growing your business or continue to sell to existing customers. But retaining existing customers and improving loyalty and satisfaction, right up there, number two. Creating consistent, relevant, and positive consumer or customer experiences across all channels, 34%. Higher than understanding social media and using social channels effectively. Higher than managing, collecting, blah, 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 blah. Engagement and loyalty are rising up to the top. And the reason is because we're seeing those numbers drop across the industry in a number of different places. So, trying to go forward there. And one of the other phenomenons that's happening related to engagement, I think it's sort of a subset of engagement, is around customer loyalty. As a whole, we're becoming a less loyal, customer base. The ability to attribute your loyalty with just a click of a button now has driven down what that really means in a lot of ways, I think. It's also kind of created this new wave of culture where, millennials, everybody's always bashing on millennials, but millennials, you guys are the most disloyal audience that there ever has been, as studied by a number of different studies. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that, right? Less disposable income, less jobs available as you get out of school, more opportunities to compare prices, more channels and avenues to choose a better product versus the one that everybody says or everybody's wearing, or that trying to fit in, those sorts of things. This audience as a whole, the percentage of loyalty that put loyalty to a brand as a top reason that they buy a product is much, much lower than the generations that came before. And I think that you probably would never see this on which you might see in my generation or generations before. So you're actually like tattooing that, that brand and a slogan that's obviously never going to change onto your arm. Just kidding, it does change. The other thing is loyalty has sort of been commoditized, and it's been publicized in a lot of different ways. And there's a really great book out, I'll mention it later, called Loyalty 3.0, that's written by the CEO of Bunchball, and he talks about the different waves of loyalty that we've been through. You didn't even know that we had a Loyalty 2.0, did you? So we're into 3.0 now, and there's, but we've really commoditized loyalty in a lot of ways, and there's all these cards that you have to carry now, and punch cards, and loyalty programs that go with your credit cards, and with your hotel thing, and your airlines, and all that, and you get to this point where you have like these. Oh, and actually, as an aside, the two things that we're the least loyal about, that have the most loyalty associated with them, airline is number 1, hotel is number 2. Which is, for me, it was a little bit, I was like, wow, that's interesting, that's kind of strange that those are at the top of the list. But when you think about it, it's price-sensitive stuff. There's a lot of tools that you can actually compare to now. Most people, over 50% of people actually have loyalty programs or loyalty points with these different, in airlines or hotels, but they're not necessarily using them every single time they make a purchase. So what these two industries are using these programs to actually lock people in, so that you feel bad if you don't get points over here, but you're not necessarily loyal to that product for any reason. Like, it's not like they're providing you value that you just keep going back to them again and again because you have a superior experience. Now that's generalization, but we get to this point where wallets look like this, and I know that those were receipts, but there's sort of this explosion. I actually just took all the loyalty cards out of my wallet a couple weeks ago. I have a stack of them that's like that, and it just feels so much nicer back here now. So the big challenge with this is called the McKinsey loyalty loop, and when you talk about the purchase funnel and how people buy a product, first it's the awareness phase, and then you consider it, then you evaluate it and compare it to other products, and you might actually purchase it, you enjoy it. Ideally, you move into this stage, and this is what we get all excited about with social media and what advocacy is all about, all this stuff that we spend a lot of time on, which is creating this loyalty loop. So getting people to come back to recommending your product, so that you don't, because all that stuff up on the top is really expensive. Creating awareness, it's a high waste initiative where you're pushing a lot of marketing and advertising out there, and you don't get a lot back in return. When you get down into that loyalty loop where other people are making recommendations on your behalf, and they're making a trusted recommendation on your behalf, well, you get to sell a little bit more product, the cost is a little bit lower, and they're carrying the weight of the brand for you on your shoulders. Now, if nobody's engaged in the beginning part of it, then that whole thing just kind of falls apart down on the bottom. So it is something that we do need to pay attention to, and it's why we're investing in engagement and loyalty. So what I want to do, that sets up kind of the challenge that we're facing right now with the products that we're building, the services that we're building, the digital experiences that we're building, the marketing communications. It's kind of, as a whole, how do we get people to engage in this digital stuff a little bit more? So I wanted to kind of flash back a little bit. This is my little transition slide. I had one that just said transition on it, but this seemed a little bit better. We're going to go back in the time machine and look at a couple of big waves of trends in marketing, because I think that the solution to this problem, one of the solutions to this problem, is actually already out there, and it's sort of the future of how we're going to build and communicate some of these products. So looking back, and anybody remember the one-to-one marketing days? This was like, I got out of school and somebody handed me this book, basically. They're like, this is how we do things now. And so one-to-one marketing was basically the Bible back in the late 90s around mid-90s, around how you would market and communicate your products. Now, the theory here, and this just celebrated its 20th anniversary, I think, this month, which was kind of interesting. I still have a couple of copies of it. It's still smart stuff, and it still applies to what we're doing today. The underlying premise was that we, rather than just blasting messages at people, we could actually segment an audience and serve relevant messages to them. Brilliant, right? It makes a lot of sense. We weren't even doing that 20 years ago. We were just like, hey, buy our stuff. And we're like, all right. And then, and after a while, we realized, well, hey, maybe this person's a little bit different than this person. And they might like 5 messages a month. And this person might like 2. And they might like offers about this. And, and that's what became modern day CRM. And that's still an underlying marketing principle and communication tool that we use. The next wave, early 2000s, the wave that we're in right now, word of mouth marketing. Now, why word of mouth marketing? Well, back early in the day, there's a guy named Annie Cernovitz and a bunch of other people actually that were involved. This was early 2000s, 2002, 2003. Realized that, what do you know, the customers have opinions, and if we listen to those opinions, we can actually build better products, provide better support, get them to say nice things on our behalf if they're, if they feel like it. Maybe give them the tools to, talk about our stuff on their own. And that evolved into, obviously, what is modern day social media, right? But I think the really interesting thing about this, when this book was originally printed, if you look at the foreword and the afterword, foreword by Seth Godin, afterword by Guy Kawasaki, there was some good stuff happening in this book. And this book it's in its, I don't know what printing now, they just reprinted it. It's still a fantastic book and really relevant to how we, the underlying foundation of what we do today. But it was a little bit, it wasn't as big as what we're doing today in social media. It was the right principles, not the right scale, because the tools didn't exist yet, and all of the knowledge around how do we measure this stuff, and how do we, programmatically roll out all this other stuff. We're still building that, and so the idea was here, but the actual execution of it, as it is today in social media, wasn't available yet. Another thing that this movement challenge that it faced was just the name of it, word of mouth marketing. It's a WOM. It's a terrible sound, right? And I remember going to, I don't know if Cal's here, but my old boss, Cal McAllister, and we were writing up a proposal for this big campaign that we were doing, and blah, 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 and we're going to increase word of mouth marketing. And he looked at it and he's like, what the hell is that? And I said, well, it's word of mouth marketing. It's like it's the new thing. Everybody's excited about it. It's going to be big. And he goes, no, that's a stupid name. Take it out of the proposal. I was like, no, this is happening right now. I got to, I pulled it up on a website and I was like, look, there's an association. It's called the Word of Mouth Marketing Association. He's like, it's a dumb name. Take it out. And so we talked about people sharing their voice and all, and not too long after, social media was kind of coined a term, and a whole industry developed around it, and here we are all today, right? But it had a naming problem, and that, I think it's a foreshadowing, a little interesting thing that we're going to come back to here. So where are we today? What's happening now? Well, there's a lot of really interesting stuff that's happening right now. We're starting to understand a little bit about human behavior. We're starting to understand why people do the things that they do, what motivates them, what gets them excited, how different people behave in different ways, and all kinds of interesting things. And I'm going to throw a term out there that I didn't make up, but I borrowed based on a whole bunch of other terms that I thought were really interesting. But this is, I think we're moving into an era called motivational design. And motivational design is really thinking about not just marketing communications or product development, or even just like digital experiences or anything like that. It can be offline as well, but it's how we think about building and architecting this stuff in a way that motivates people to the desired outcome that we have in mind. It is not that kind of motivational design. Dream big, little one, but sorry, that was bad. But there's a guy named Jesse Schell that he's a professor at Carnegie Mellon in the technology. I'm going to get his group wrong and all of that, but really brilliant guy, and he talked about this a while back, and I remember listening to him and just thinking that is perhaps the most eloquent way of describing what it is that we're all talking about here, which is there's stuff that you have to do and stuff that you want to do. Have to, wanna. This is a professor at Carnegie Mellon. Have to, wanna. And you have to do taxes, right? Like, you can't get away from doing taxes because they'll come and get you. You want to play games, and you want to play with your kids. You want to do other stuff that isn't required of you. And what motivational design is about is understanding the aspects of the wanna stuff and applying it to some of that have to stuff. And that's really what it all comes down to. I'm going to show you an example of this first, because I've been talking for a little bit, and I think sometimes examples help land. Okay, so there was this program that Volkswagen did, and they did an experiment, which was the belief that if they apply fun to things that people don't find fun, that they can actually change behavior. And this was one of the winning proposals that came in, which was simply that can we change the behavior of people that take take the escalator every day and incentivize them to take the stairs instead? And so, they showed this subway terminal, I think it was in Sweden or somewhere like that, and everybody was, riding the escalator up. It was like 90% of the people rode the escalator. And on the stairs, they installed a piano. So up the staircase, you can imagine the piano keys, and over 60% of people, 66% of people started then taking the staircase just because it was more fun and more interesting to do, had a really cool sound to it, and it became something that they kind of kept going. Really simple change, basically created a desired behavior, desired outcome through a simple application of something that people want to do versus something that they have to do. They did this by understanding the thoughts, needs, and motivations of people. Now, this is a really popular principle right now in user experience design and strategy, which is thinking about the user first and thinking about not just what they're doing, like what their activity is, but what are they thinking, feeling, and doing during that activity? What are they motivated by? How can we use what motivates them to move them through this experience in a way that is fun for them, exciting for them, interesting for them, whatever your terminology happens to be. And a lot of this is based on two different types of motivation systems. You have intrinsic and extrinsic. Intrinsic is when you're doing something for yourself, really, is the best way to describe it. You have a goal in mind, you want to achieve something on your own to make yourself feel good. It's climbing Mount Rainier. It's doing something at work that you set out to achieve, not that you were financially motivated to do. The extrinsic stuff is like that award that I had in the beginning, which is like a thing. It's, I'm going to provide you with this thing, and you're going to get it if you do this. And so a lot of bonus structures and things like that are obviously based on extrinsic rewards. This picture is of my daughter, and I've managed to work my daughter in every presentation that I do, so I just got to keep the thing going. But the funny thing here was, this was last Friday, and I almost didn't, bad parent, I almost didn't go to this, but she received a VIP award in our class, very important pirate, because they can't say very important person in a second grade class. And you can tell this is a public school. See that computer back behind her there? It's like from 1972. But so she couldn't have been more proud of this thing. And I remember seeing her when I got up, and I was like, oh man, I got to go to this. Because, and as I sat there and I listened to what the award was about and what she kind of got out of it, it was this perfect combination of extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. Intrinsically, she was motivated to do this because she personally wanted to achieve it. She wanted to be one of the top people in the class. Now, and as an aside, this award doesn't have any, like if they behave well in school and turn in the homework, then they get it at some point. It's not like everybody, it's something special, but to her it was. Now, the extrinsic motivators, it is, come on. Okay, so the extrinsic motivators are amazing. So this is what I love. Extrinsic motivators. You can get up and get a drink of water anytime you feel like it. Anytime. You can, you can be first in line for stuff. I don't know what. If you have to go to the bathroom, you can, like without even asking. And to top it all off, best thing ever, when you come in from recess, you get to clean up the playfield. You're the one. So what the class, you clean up, like she's cleaning up garbage now because she wanted, right? So the thing about it is, she was motivated to do this because of both factors, and it was kind of the lethal combination of both that created that ultimate motivation with her. And when I look at my two kids, I actually see that they're motivated in different ways. She's very extrinsically motivated. It's like jelly bean potty. That worked really well. My son is all about intrinsic motivation. I couldn't pay the kid $1 million to potty train. So but when he like walked out of the bathroom, he's like, I did it, and that's called fiero, just as a side thing. It's that moment of like, I did this for myself and I achieved something, so, I'm the best. And so we're going to, we'll spend a little bit more time talking about this, but these are really important factors when you think about a motivation system. How am I going to motivate people, and what am I bringing into play to actually move them through, and what is it that motivates them? What can I put out there to do it? Now, obviously, the same reward system that she has in her school isn't motivating to all the kids. It's certainly motivated to her and a subset of the other audiences, and their teacher's done a really good way of finding a way to motivate each different group in there. I think it's really fascinating. Now, what happens when marketers get a hold of something or academics and all of that? Well, we can break things down into anything. So this is Nicole Lazzaro, who's a researcher in game theory, and really brilliant woman. I definitely recommend looking into her work. This is something that her and her company created here. There are 4 types of fun, only 4. So, and you're having one of those 4 no matter what, I'm sorry. And, the kind of fun that we're having in here, definitely serious fun. But there's easy fun, which is kind of like when you're exploring and you're, enjoying things. You have hard fun, and that's that moment of fiero where you're actually setting out to achieve something that maybe you didn't achieve each time you finally get it. If you do play video games, it happens all the time. Like when you just finally crack that thing and you beat level 127 of Candy Crush and yeah, woo! And it's that feeling, and it's actually there's something chemical happening in your body when that happens. There's people fun. Some of us like to be around other people more when we're doing stuff. Social media comes into play with that. We like to compare ourselves to other people. That's fun and motivating to some of us because some of us are competitive, etc. And there's all kinds of fun stuff that goes with this. You can search for this, 4 types of fun. There's plenty of information and documentation about it out there. And as an aside, the reason, if you go back and you look at play theory and you look at the theory of fun, there isn't a lot of information like, let's say, 3 or 4 years ago. Because there are people researching play and there are people out there researching fun, and there wasn't a lot of money going into it, not a lot of grant money. Now, along comes the game industry and video game industry, and they're like, we just made $1 billion in 3 days. So actually, yeah, let's figure out how we can make 1.1 billion, and they'll throw a ton of money at this stuff, and they're actually starting to better understand how these things work and what motivates us, and there's a lot of research going into it now just over the last few years that we're now applying to what it is that we're doing. So we talked about the chemical things that are happening in the body, dopamine. Now, again, this is a chemical that we don't totally understand yet. We're learning more about it just over the last few years. It's associated with a lot of really cool stuff like love, happiness, lust, addiction. And when you feel that moment of fun, you're getting this dopamine charge. It's a neurotransmitter that's coming into your body, and it feels good. It makes you feel good. And, there are dopamines, we know it's released in different ways for different types of people depending on how they're motivated, intrinsically versus extrinsically. We know if you do a lot of drugs, you kind of suppress this stuff, and so it's harder to motivate you. That's what's going on there. But we're learning a lot more about this neurotransmitter along with others, and there's all kinds of cool stuff with PET scans and other interesting things that are happening now that is being recorded while people are in different situations. Some of it is playing games. Some of it is thinking about buying something. Some of it is how do we motivate people at work when you're thinking about accomplishing a task? What does that do? And again, we're at the infancy of these studies, and we're understanding them kind of at the task level, but maybe not at like the whole career level and what motivates you across your career and that sort of thing. Now, okay, so that's all great. This is all theoretical stuff and all that. And it was starting to sound like something that maybe you've heard of, gamification. Gamification is a big trend that started several years ago, and I think, this is a personal opinion here, there's a lot of really great stuff in gamification that's happening. But, and there's a big but that goes with it, I think it's an oversimplification of what is possible in this industry. With gamification, we're looking at what motivates people, and we're applying generally a lot of extrinsic rewards. Badges, leaderboards, trophies, things like that. And again, as businesses and as marketers, we're always looking for that quick fix. What are the 7 keys to success? What is this? What is that? And we've built platforms and all kinds of things that are engines that run the stuff and just like put the gamification thing on it, and it's going to be way more fun now, and that is happening, and actually this stuff really works well on a lot of different things. But if you ask me, as somebody who's been out there talking about this stuff to enterprises and other companies, it has a naming problem. Just like word of mouth marketing did, which is even still hard to say, gamification, and this is, again, my opinion, is a really terrible name. I think it cheapens what it is that we're able to do in this industry. I think it confines it to a small set of things. And I believe that the wave of what we're learning now in motivational design and through the power of play will continue to go on. I kind of have a hunch that this name gamification is going to sort of recede. Now, the reason for that is not just like a personal opinion kind of thing, but I actually had the opportunity to go to the gamification conference earlier this year. Fascinating event for a number of reasons. One, I'm talking about stuff really fast here and covering a lot of ground. It took like 3 days to cover this stuff in any level of good depth, because the amount of research that goes into just the four keys to fun. Nicole Lazaro spent an hour talking about that, and I felt like we were just cracking the top on it. We could talk about flow for a while, and there's all kinds of great stuff. We could talk about education for a while, and there's all kinds of great stuff happening in that area. As the day went on, and we started with the kind of more, let's say, hardcore gamification companies, and we started evolving into the people that were applying these principles into education or into loyalty, et cetera, more and more we saw people that would say, okay, I'm not going to say the G word today, but what I am going to talk about is motivation. And they spent a lot of time talking about it. And more that became the case. And the other interesting thing was, when I sat down and had lunch that day, I sat at this table as you do at these events, you start talking to people. And the people at my table, one of them was a game designer, he was a level designer at a pretty well-known company. There was a neuropsychologist, there was a behavioral psychologist, there was a guy from Wharton School of Business, and there's a fifth person that I'm forgetting now. And I'm sitting and I'm looking at this table, and I'm like, where else do you get all these people together in a room? And all of them are looking at this and going, there's interesting stuff happening here, there's research happening here, and we can apply these principles to some of the things that we're working on. So it was educators, psychologists, marketers, communicators, people designing products, all of them sitting at this table having this conversation about motivation, human behavior, engagement, and not about points, badges, leaderboards. And I mentioned the level. I guess I already hit this early. Grand Theft Auto 5. This is the kind of money that's coming into this industry now, and why I think it's easy to glom onto the games industry is this game, when it launched, in one day in 24 hours made $800 million. In 3 days, made $1 billion. Globally. You could say what you want about the content of the game and what it says about our society and all sorts of other fun things, but I've played this thing, and it is a science what they've done inside of the game from a motivational standpoint. If for research purposes alone, I would encourage you to go through and sort of see how you feel when you reach levels of accomplishment, or play a different game. Play Candy Crush or something. You will feel that moment of accomplishment. The other thing that I think is really interesting is if you look at one of the big companies that is actually sort of underlying all this stuff. Bunchball is one of the first gamification engine companies out there. There's several. We have Big Door in Seattle, great company as well. The CEO of Bunchball is they're sort of stepping back from gamification. They're talking about loyalty now. He's the guy that wrote the Loyalty 3.0 book, and he was just recently quoted. He's like, look, gamification is a term, we're using it now, it feels like we're going to move away from it. All honesty, it's just good design. That's what we're talking about, is good product design, good experience design. It's designed to get people engaged in stuff. So what I thought I would do is talk a little bit about how some of this stuff gets built, who's doing it, who's doing cool stuff. It's always interesting to see examples. Maybe some will work when I click on them. I don't know. And then we'll save some time for questions. So obviously we do, this is the one kind of, hey, here, I worked at Smashing Ideas, is what we do. But this is one of the things that we do internally. And the first step, which with any of these things, when you're designing for experience and you're designing for engagement, is really stepping back and thinking about all of your target customers. So who are the different personas that you're targeting? What are the different expected experiences for those people? What are your goals for those different personas? Not just the end goal, but what are the different steps that you want them to take along the way? And then mapping those out in what we call an experience map or an engagement map. We go through this process internally. It's a fun exercise that we do with clients. It's up on the board, and we break down who's doing what they're thinking, feeling, doing in each one. This is an external one that I can show you because we did it for just as a project. These are generally fairly internal documents that kind of result out of this thing. And at the end of the day, you end up with these maps that kind of cover a boardroom wall that show you what are the different engagement loops at this point in the customer's journey. Here's an onboarding sequence that's going to happen. And then it allows you to set up measurement points along the way so that you can track, am I losing people in onboarding? Are they actually how long are they spending in the sequence that I'm want them to do? And actually planning these, a core engagement loop, which is understanding what the call to action is, engaging with them, applying that feedback reward, whatever that motivating factor is, and motivating that emotion and kind of completing that loop each time. And there's the people who think about this. Well, I'm not the person who's great at this stuff. It is right now the game designers and evolving into the user experience strategists and designers that can actually that can think about these things and actually apply these principles to an engagement strategy. Some of the great things that we have learned from these game designers is, I'll actually go through a couple of these. One of them is really great onboarding. When you look at an application that, actually let me kill that guy there. When you look at an application that has a lot of complexity to it, like this one does, this is an application for Haley Pomeroy. It's a diet, potentially the most complex nutrition plan that you could ever take part in, but probably one of the more effective ones. She's a celebrity nutritionist, dietitian, and we got to build a companion application that goes with it. And if you just dove into this thing, you would be lost and you'd be gone in a heartbeat. And so thinking about, not just dumping people into an experience and just saying, all right, and go play Halo. And that doesn't work. There's an onboarding sequence. If you think about how a game works, where you practice something and you get to learn something, and then you pick up different tools along the way, and those allow you to invest in an experience. And so we're doing this with applications now, and people are doing this product design and that sort of thing as well. So here, as you get into it, you're given a little bit of information. You provide a little bit of information back. We call that active engagement. You're providing something from yourself to us, back to us. And we give you the opportunity to actually continue more engagement with us so we can, continue a conversation. We tell you sort of how it's going to work in really simple ways, and then bring you into the applications that you're actually have a higher degree of success. And it was something like this when you compare it to other applications in the health and nutrition category. You see people coming back several times a week. They're using it daily. They're sharing stuff out of it, and it's because they're invested in it. And so thinking about onboarding with anything that you do, really important tool. The other is thinking about kind of expanding your idea of what fun means. When I remember being back at in a job a long time ago. And I remember my boss saying something, we're going to do this, and we're going to launch this product, and we're going to have fun doing it. I was like, dude, I don't know what you do for fun, but what I do for fun is not this. Like, this is work. But work can be fun. And I think it's understanding what motivates people and setting bars for achievement allows you to create that feeling of fun. It's hard fun or serious fun. But SAP has really embraced this, and I mean, this is a god-awful ugly internal website. However, it's an internal tool that they use where they're applying some of these motivation principles to their workforce, and a lot of companies are investing in this. There is, by 2015, they say 40% of global 1,000 organizations will use some kind of motivation principles to transform their internal business operations. So with SAP, it's everything from training. Here, you're actually modeling a sales call, and you fail at it. There's fun failure. Like I didn't get it right the first time, I'm gonna get it right the second time. If you think about that, you can apply that to education as well. It shouldn't just be that you take a test and you're done. Why can't you just go back and learn from it and try and apply that learning again and again? That's what failure is all about. But they use this tool for everything from big stuff to training the sales force down to little stuff like encouraging more carpool use, and applying, again, motivation principles to that, which I think is really interesting. You think about social fun. So Samsung, their big challenge was that they had very limited knowledge of what Samsung does. So what does Samsung do? They make TVs, right? And no, they make all kinds of stuff. They're like a consumer electronics company. And it's all on their website, but nobody ever goes to those pages. And they saw a lack of engagement on their global website as a whole. But they also had a lot of people that were visiting it regularly. So they actually built out the Samsung community that they called Samsung Nation and applied principles of, in this case, pure gamification, points, badges, leaderboards, to their community and got them to more deeply invest and understand the breadth of products that Samsung has. Now, this could apply to all kinds of stuff. Like this could be entertainment. It could be a news site. It could be, wherever you're asking for deeper engagement, you could think about how some of these principles might imply. You would be surprised at what people will do and when you actually give them a challenge. This is something that Amstel recently did, probably over in Europe only, where they want to be the #1 beer for like investment bankers in Germany or something. I forget what their goal was, but they. So this application, you launch the application, and if you don't use your phone for 8 hours and leave this app running for 8 hours, which is 8 hours of branding for them, right? Like, I can't use it still. You get a free beer. Now that's pretty good, Like the payoff there, if it's a Saturday and I'm not expecting a call or something like that, yeah, I'll let it run and get a free Amstel Light out of it. Why not? So really simple tool, obviously really simple execution, and they're getting pretty interesting engagement out of it. The final thing that I think that we can really learn and take away from what's happening in both in motivational design as well as, honestly, in gamification is story. A lot of people talking about story. That's like the hot topic for the last couple of years, and we talk about storytelling a lot. Going back to that original principle of the one-to-one marketing, where we're not just blasting messages out at people, don't confuse story with yelling different crap at people. Like that, oh, well, I didn't use any marketing terminology, so I'm still gonna tell you stuff. And story has a plot. Story has protagonists and antagonists, and it has, arcs to it. And nobody understands that better than the people that have been designing some of these, fun experiences in the past. And so when we think about how story from a brand or story from a product unfolds, think about how it unfolds across an experience, and you can map that out across an experience. There are points where you definitely need to get certain amounts of information across, but there are other things where you can allow people to discover things and, pique their curiosity with different information, et cetera. So my last kind of like mini rant there is, there's a big difference between story and using marketing speak. So back to where we started. Again, I forgot the medals. We're at the beginning stages of some things that are really exciting that are happening in the areas of product development and experience design and marketing communications. And I think that a lot of it is around our ability to, an emerging area of just understanding how the human brain works around the areas of motivation. It's been really fun to consider how we apply this stuff at SI, at Smashing Ideas, and hopefully it piques your interest into things that you might do in the future. So thank you. And I will. I'd be happy to take any questions that you have if I can answer them. And they've asked that you use the microphone, which I'm sure is entirely motivating. Or you can yell them. I don't care. Yes.
VIP, Greenwood Elementary.
That's right. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask about that because intrinsic and extrinsic is what that teacher does.
Yeah.
My son was a VIP too.
All right. Right on.
Because he deconstructs the notion of becoming a class pet. It's not about getting the gold star
Right.
or achievement. So you're not the brown noser. It's the very important pirate.
Right.
So what the teacher is interested in is that agency and identity building of the student. They can do mischievous things and become a pirate.
Absolutely.
And he builds a whole context for that, meaning you recite my captain, before you go to class.
Yep.
And everything sort of revolves around that. So as a designer, when you say it's good design, and you want to design either implicit or explicit, talk to me about the context and the community that you're designing for and you're designing with.
Obviously Scott also teaches at the University of Washington, so it's a big, open-ended, like we can talk about this for 5 hours up here. I will try and, as we often do when we get together and talk about things, VIP. So understanding if I got your question right, I mean, she's part of a system that the teacher has orchestrated, and what he's doing is motivating one group, one persona of the class to basically self-manage. And by providing steps and leading them through this process of achieving this, then achieving this, then achieving this, they have kind of deemed themselves worthy of self-policing. And he can then focus on the other 15 students as opposed to this other 15 that are now kind of self-managed. And so he has really done a great job of deconstructing the different student types that are in the room and how to motivate one group while then also manage this other group and provide similar incentives that might get them to actually just maybe turn in the homework because that's a big enough goal for that particular audience. Do you have a similar experience in that class? Yeah. Any other questions?
And I can tell you how the pirates turn out later in life.
Well, I've seen, yeah. Cool.
There's a company out there called Achievers something or whatever, but their big thing is not points or badges, but somebody saying something good about someone else's work.
Cool.
How do you see that versus giving somebody points, badges, monetary rewards, things like that?
Okay, that's an interesting question. That's social. Status, I guess, if you will, is something that a lot of us, look for. And so when you look at the different types of fun, one of them is social fun. Where do I fit in society? What other people think about me? How do I compare to other people in that group? And so this opportunity to put yourself out there and have somebody actually provide positive feedback to you, say nice things to you, it's highly, highly motivating to an audience of people. It's not everybody, but it's certainly an audience that might be involved in social media or maybe active in social media, actually participating in it. So I can absolutely see that as a relevant way to apply motivation. Now, if I were to apply that to maybe a larger set of activities, I might bring in other things as well to get a broader range of people. Now, this is going back to like really great game design. If you look at I'm gonna use Grand Theft Auto 5 as an example because again, like content aside, there are a lot of really interesting things that are happening there. One of them is you have the social status, which is the ability to play online and compare yourself to other people, et cetera, that Xbox Live kind of creates. You have other things which are rewards driven, so you're achieving points, you're racking up cash, they have a whole list of terrible, terrible things that you can do that you can achieve more and more of. And then they also do things where you're, some people are motivated by sort of like serendipitous challenges or things that you might, discover just through pure curiosity. Other people love that kind of play. It's like free flow. And so by providing all of these things in a different context, you can appeal to a broader range of personas. Yes? Can you give me an example of one, maybe? Payday loans, okay. So an example of how you might apply this to a brand or a product that people might be embarrassed to use, like, for example, payday loans. I think you'd want to go back and decide what is the desired outcome. Is it to get more people to use the payday loan system versus other loan systems? Is it, so you start to break down what is the goal. If the goal was, we know that people are going to use loans and we want them to choose our loan versus other loans, then we might try implementing a loyalty program that goes with that. If it was that the loan system maybe was challenging to use, we might think about a better onboarding experience. Like how do we get people to understand that this is actually something that they can trust and take part in. So it might be that loans require you to provide a lot of information, and people just get stuck on that screen that's like this long with all that information that's on it. And if I were to just collect a little bit of information along the way, I would invest people in that experience and show them progress along the way, which is another really great tool that we can learn from what's happening out there. People like progress, be able to see the progress. Number of different ways that you could think about how to actually deconstruct that. Again, it comes back to the goals, I think, of what you want to do. Maybe one more question, and then
Yeah, what tools and practices are you using to build empathy with your users so that those experience maps you're building and the motivations you're building into the brand experience is actually aligned with them?
Great question. So what tools are we using to build empathy with our users so that we make sure that the things that we are building kind of map to their emotional needs and what motivates them? We do a lot of prototyping, so actually testing ideas, paper prototypes, and actually clickable prototypes with people. We do what's called play testing, so which is a form of user research where we actually test experiences with people and who are in the different audience groups that we're looking at. For user experience, really great practice is actually going out there and doing user interviews, generally on location, on site, getting gleaning information from people. Usually it's qualitative, and that's kind of the base set of stuff that you would do. Again, when you apply these, maybe this is something I didn't mention. When you apply a lot of these principles, there's a little bit more work involved. It's not like cookie cutter, and each experience is going to be a little bit different based on who you're building it for. So, but if you start with a little better understanding of who your customer is, check back in with them and get some testing, check back in with them again, and then on the back end, data. If you think about where those points of motivation are and where you want to move people through, you can build a data strategy that maps to that. So then you're analyzing that data, and we call it reflective listening, but basically looking at the data that you're pulling in, making changes and tweaks, optimizing the experience for engagement back on the back end. And ideally, we're a professional services company, so the ideal situation is that your client enables you to do that and you actually reserve budget to do it, et cetera. But that's kind of the optimal goal situation. All right, well, what I'll do is I can hang out for a couple minutes, and I'm more than happy to take other questions. It's good to see a lot of friendly faces in the audience, see a lot of people out there that I know. Thank you again, and have a great SICK.